Good morning, Husker fans, and welcome to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. We're back on Saturday for our live chat, and it is spring game day. It is the day for the Nebraska football spring game. We're going to actually get to see the guys on the field. Barring some insane weather. I know there's been a lot of tornadoes and
Yeah,
stuff in
yeah.
Nebraska the last couple days. So hopefully everybody is safe out there, and hopefully everything is good today in Nebraska so we can see the Cornhuskers on the field, man. We've been waiting for this day. We've seen the highlights of Dylan Raiola and Daniel Kalen and everybody else. And in about 3 hours from now, we will get to see them play. So hopefully you come join us for the chat. And joining me again here today, as always, is Danny Gillette. And how you doing this morning, man?
I'm tired, man. I like we both cover NFL or multiple, football teams, so there's a lot of NFL draft prep work, and honestly, I'm happy today's day 3 because I am tired, but I'm also excited for today. Andrew is hyped and so am I, and kind of like what you alluded to, I'm just hoping that everybody's safe and that nobody has too much damage and that the weather holds up nicely today because I'm hearing there's some more weather that might be coming in. So, I mean, I'm just hoping everybody's safe, and I'm very thankful that I do not live in tornado country.
Yeah, it can be a little freaky. Had to deal with that when I lived in Nebraska, so it's part of that, Midwest
Yeah.
belt that gets that. So hopefully everybody is okay. And yeah, thanks to everybody who's joining us for the chat across the Husker Big Red, whether it's YouTube or Facebook. So if you haven't, though, subscribe to the channel. Please do. For anybody who's watching on the replay, please hit the like button. It's a really big favor. It helps us out and helps other Nebraska fans find our content. But today, since it is the spring game, we wanted to do some spring game predictions. You guys can obviously, throw any chats or questions you have into the chat or any comments, but that's kind of what we're focused on. So it'd be great if you guys would, throw in your spring game predictions as well. And anybody on the replay, put in a comment or whatever. But I guess just kind of starting from there, what are you expecting to see today? What are some of your, predictions or thoughts on what we're going to see from the spring game from the Huskers?
I want to see Daniel Kalen because everybody talks about Dylan Raiola, and rightly so. But I want to see Daniel Kalen, and I want to see Heinrich Harburg, and if he improved his throwing motion, because in all the videos that I've seen, Harburg has improved his throwing motion, but I just want to see it in kind of a not a live game setting, but a kind of, well, I guess a live game setting, not like a regular season game, but I just want to see the development of both Kalen and Harburg. Obviously the spring game isn't going to tell everything, and it's not the be all end all, but I'm curious to see how they perform on today, and because we've seen and heard a lot about Raiola, and Daniel Kalen and Harburg have kind of taken a back seat, but by all accounts they've been having strong springs as well. So I'm very curious to see what they can do today, and if they perform well, can they build off that for the fall? And I think as much as spring games don't tell us the whole story, I think there's some things in terms of like I said, Harburg's story motion and Kalen's how quickly can he get through progressions. I think the spring game could tell us things like that. So it'll be interesting to see what those two do, because Kalen especially is the future of the program, and let's face it, we've sucked at quarterback development over the past couple of years. So I think a strong spring game from Kalen will certainly be a step in the right direction.
Yeah, quarterback development hasn't been a strong suit of the Huskers, really, I mean, I could say even ever. Outside of during the option days, but I mean, Nebraska is, now in this new era of, passing quarterbacks, and when you need kind of the superstar quarterback to do it all, I mean, they really, they really haven't had that. Taylor Martinez was the closest thing, but of course he, struggled to throw the football, and at times, I mean, he did throw the ball well, but, injuries were kind of his undoing, unfortunately. And that's why it's nice to have a guy like Dylan Raiola who doesn't necessarily have to run, doesn't really have to run at all to be, an impact player. He can move around in the pocket. He can run if he needs to. I mean, he can run, the speed option. He can do some different things, run the zone read if he has to. But I'm just excited to see him play, and I think he's going to play outstanding. That's, one of my predictions. And I think even though I don't obviously expect Matt Rule to, name a starter or anything, but I think it's going to be pretty clear today who the best quarterback is on this team. And that's my prediction. I do think the other guys are going to play well, but I just think that Dylan Raiola has that X factor, that extra bit of talent that you just can't coach. And I think that that's going to be the difference. I do think that, having Daniel Kalen here is really pushing him. I think Heinrich Harburg, I think the competition's bringing out the best in all of them, and that's what it's designed to do. But it's going to be exciting to see them all, put it out on the field. And, I'm excited to see these receivers. I want to see the running backs battle it out. The line is going to be a live game. I still haven't seen, or I don't know if there's how they're dividing the teams up, or if they're just going like first team offense against first team defense. I mean, I don't quite remember how they did it last year, but regardless, it's going to be
I
fun.
want to say
And
it was 1 versus 1, and then that they matched up kind of that way last year.
yeah, I don't quite remember the scoring system or how they did that or whatever, but
Yeah, this
I
says
do.
one-on-ones, and that would make sense to me.
Yeah, I do like that format. I don't mind the idea of splitting the teams up either, to give guys a chance. But what, as long as it's real football, that's the only thing that I care about. So that'll be interesting. I don't expect to see like Ty Robinson and Nash. I don't expect to see them a ton. We don't need to give them extra snaps. We know what they can do. The same goes with Isaac Gifford and some of those guys. Bryce Bennert. Like let some of the other offensive linemen play. But it's good to give those guys some run though, and it's not like they haven't been going at it a bunch spring. But yes, I mean, if it's ones that I guess right there, that's going to be the interesting point. If it's ones versus ones, like, would you see? That honestly, I still think that Matt Rule is going to try out Heinrich Harburg first. Then, if that's the way it is, I don't think he's trotting Dylan Raiola out there first, but maybe he will. Maybe he will be so bold to do that.
I mean, at a certain point too, it's everybody wants to see Dylan Raiola. I mean, and I think Matt Rule's aware of that too. And yes, I know it's a spring game, but I mean, the people didn't come to not see Dylan Raiola, so I think there might be a little bit of a deciding factor in that too. But I'm excited to see Emmett Johnson today. He's had a great spring by all accounts, and I'm excited to see what he can do. He's been working hard to get to that second gear, as Evan Cooper alluded to about a week or so ago, and so I'm kind of interested to see what that second gear is. And if he can have a strong game today, that could tell a lot about just if he has been able to make that developmental process from last season. I mean, granted, I don't think he needed a ton of development from last year to this year, but it's still nice to hear that he's progressing and getting better, because I do think he can be a factor in this room.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think he needed to get bigger, which he's done. To handle, if he wants to really be an RB1 in the Big Ten. I mean, he, last year, I don't think he was quite big enough to do that, which is probably why he never really got like 20 carries a game. So he has definitely gotten bigger. That's been, a consistent, commentary about him ever since the slam dunk thing. So yeah, it will be fun to see him and Dante Dowdell. I actually want to see how he, plays, because I feel like Matt Rule does kind of, try to tamper down hype with transfers. So, I want to see him with my own two eyes. And like I said, there's not, running backs, it's when it's live, that's when you can tell, what's happening. So a lot of the other stuff I think is hard to evaluate with running backs until you're actually getting tackled. So I do want to see how that goes today. And yeah, I'm really excited to see the wide receivers though. I think they are going to steal the show today. The quarterbacks and the wide receivers, just because there's so much talent there at those positions. Ja'Cory Barney, Jamal Banks, Isaiah Nayor. I mean, the list goes on and on. Jalen Lloyd,
Demetrius Bell.
Yeah, I'm hoping if he's able to play today. He posted some pictures the other day, so I'm hoping that means that he's back. He did miss some practice time, so be excited to see him. But on the other side, you've got Ethan Nation's a guy I'm really excited to see. Bly Hill. Some of these freshmen that have come in here, some of these sophomore guys, Prince Willem Ameli and Cameron Leonard. Like, I want to see those guys start. It's one thing to be, freshman All-American or whatever. And now you need to become an all Big Ten player. And that means, being more consistent, being more of an ass kicker. And, I really do want to see how that kind of plays out.
And I agree with Mitch here. Thompson is a crucial piece of the puzzle, and we do need him to be ready to go. And I'm curious to see how a guy like John Bullock comes out, and he had a strong year last year, and can he continue to play at a high level? My guess is yes, but I'm curious to see how he plays today. He was fun to watch play last year, so there's a lot of interesting storylines heck, I'm interested to see how Tristan Alvano does today. Just, we haven't heard a ton about him, and just to kind of get him rolling again, and hoping he has a better, more accurate season than last year. Not saying he's a bad kicker, that we need to cut him or whatever, but he did have his struggles. So I'm curious to see how the special teams does as well, because special teams have been our Achilles heel for the last 4 years I've been covering the team, and I still really believe in Alvano, but it's going to be, hopefully he progressed a little bit from last year to this year.
Yeah, I definitely, that was one of my predictions that I meant in the spring game at HuskyBigRed.com, is that I think Alvano will, have a good day on Saturday if he gets the chance to try some kicks. I think he'll knock those through. I've got a lot of confidence in him going forward.
He has the leg, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, Stephon Thompson is a guy I want to see. Vincent Shavers, want to see what all the hype is about. And then just watching, different position battles, the offensive line,
Micah
receiver,
Mazuka.
Yeah, quarterback. But yeah, the offensive line is one. Micah Mazuka, Leptoski, Justin Jenkins, all those guys. Teddy Prohashka, see how he's really holding up. But I feel like, the center and the two tackle spots I feel like those are spoken for, unless there's, some sort of injury or whatever. And, how Turner Corcoran gets back into the mix will be interesting, probably at guard is what I'm hoping, finally. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the offensive line plays. But that was another, prediction that I had, is that I think fans are going to be, pleasantly, not surprised, I guess, but just feeling good about the play in the trenches even more on the offensive and defensive lines after today. I think that's been a core, staple of Matt Rule, and they, they kind of, really improved in that area last year, but I think they're going to take another step in the right direction this year as well. So, that's one thing I think fans will take away is, the healthy play of the Huskers in the trenches.
And overall health, I hope nobody gets hurt today. I mean, obviously that's just, a baseline thing, but we've had a pretty healthy spring so far to this point. I just don't want to see anybody get hurt, and I just want everybody to be healthy. They've had a good spring. Just rest up after this game and get ready for the fall, because believe it or not, I'm looking at my calendar right now. April 27th, first game August 31st. We're getting kind of close. I'm excited.
Yeah, so I mean, I haven't heard anything about Maz if he's sick, so
I haven't either.
Possibly, but no, I meant more in the fall with Corcoran. I don't think he's playing at all today, but yeah, at any rate, it'll be interesting, to see if he does come back in the fall. And Mitch is saying that he's questionable, and that could be a medical redshirt year for him. So we'll see what happens. That's obviously a long way away, but yeah, I wasn't saying we would see him today, but I do think if he is able to be healthy by the fall, he will factor into the guard position
for sure. And a lot of these younger linemen have been impressing as well. Maybe not necessarily the guard position, but guys like Grant Bricks, guys like Gibson. I mean, I'm curious to see how the young bucks do today and how much playing time they get.
Yeah, I think we'll see them plenty. Bricks, Gibson, Pyle, Gunnar Gatula. I think they'll see a lot of those guys. So yeah, I mean, it'll be fun to see how they develop. The secondary, I think, is going to be interesting to see. There's some battles there as too. With Dwight Boodle and Nation, like we said, Bly Hill. So linebacker. There's a lot of, I think, position battles. A lot of guys fighting for time, even on the defensive line. Jamari Butler, whether it's that jack or defensive end position.
Yeah.
Cameron Leonard. James Williams, Kai Wallen. There's a lot of guys that are, still trying to kind of establish themselves on the depth chart, and that's one thing I think you feel good about on the defense. Is there is a lot of depth up and down.
The jack position is loaded because I believe Umamelian can also play the jack position, and then you have Shavers who. Can Shavers play jack? I believe Shavers can play jack. So I don't know. In any event, there's a lot of depth on the defensive side of the football, and I'm curious to see how it all plays out. I'm really excited about Shavers. I know you mentioned him already, but he's been getting a lot of hype this spring, and the coaching staff has been really high on him. And honestly, if they can get good production out of a freshman like Shavers, maybe not necessarily a big role in the fall, but even just the last couple games to end the season, I'd definitely be encouraged because I think he is going to make a push, and he's not going to be just some freshman that sits on the bench.
Yeah, and so Mitch's question: so if you take a medical redshirt year, you still allowed to play in 4 games, or is it 0 games? It's with those, I think it's generally like it's a kind of like an appeal process. So if you played like 2 or 3 games and then like in your 3rd game of the season you got suffered a torn ACL, I think you can apply for a medical redshirt, and in that situation it probably would be granted. But I think
Mm.
they do generally kind of use that. Like if you play 5 or 6 games, then your chances of getting that medical redshirt aren't as high. So I don't think that there's a you know a a barometer for it. It just, I think it's a case by case basis, but they do look at how many games that you've played. So like for Corcoran, I don't think that they could, say, oh, he missed, I don't think they could do like the Buford thing and, like, oh, he's going to play in the last 4 games and they're still going to use a medical redshirt. He could use a regular redshirt in that situation. But yeah, unless you actually suffer like a season-ending injury, I don't think like they would allow you to take a redshirt if you just healed from an injury and missed like half the season but were able to play. So if that makes sense.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, the NCAA has always been really weird about their rulings and their regulations. So
Yeah, and so Jack and safety were biggest concerns to Mitch. Jack isn't a concern anymore. I'm not sure if Javer. Yes, Shavers is more of an inside guy. I don't think he's a Jack. But if you look at their roster, actually, they only list like 2 guys as a Jack linebacker.
honestly,
So
who I'm interested in watching today is Chief Borders. He's been getting a lot of hype this spring too. So
yeah, and so that's like with MJ Sherman and Chief Borders, like they were Jack players last year, and they aren't listed. The only guys that are listed as Jacks are McGahee and another freshman, actually. So I'm not sure if they're doing that intentionally. Like even Prince William Mamalian's not listed as a Jack, even though he was like the starting Jack at the end of the season. So I mean, the Jack is because you got to remember with the 3, basically you got there's 3 defensive linemen. That's essentially the 4th. He's the hybrid kind of pass rusher type, and then the other 2 are more like your traditional like inside linebacker, weak side linebacker type. Like that was the Reimer and shoot, I'm blanking on the other guys. The other Heinrich. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
Heinrich,
I mean, those are the kind of linebackers you're thinking there, and then the other guys more the pass rusher type, but they have a lot of those types of guys with Borders. I mean, Jamar Burnett, I think, played there a little bit last year, and then he kind of bumped down to defensive line. So I don't. If it's the starting 3 defensive linemen, it's probably going to be, my guess is that Burnett, Nash, and Ty Robinson, but Cameron Leonard's kind of in that mix too, and it's sometimes they do just go with more of a nickel set too. So it's I don't really get caught up too much in who is a starter in this defense because lots of guys are gonna. There's about 15 guys that are gonna play starting level snaps and
you
probably
rotate frequently. Yeah.
and then 5 more. So I mean, really, you're gonna have like 20 guys that are playing, somewhat regular snaps on the defense. So, I don't get too caught up in that. I think that that's a good thing overall, especially when you're talking about, your pass rushers, and you can rotate through Uma Malian and Kai Wallen and James Williams and Lenhart and all those guys, Butler. It's a huge asset. And if you want to look at what made Michigan so good last year, that's one of the things that did it. Is they just had, it was like, it wasn't like a substitution, it was like a line change in hockey, and it was just like, no drop off. And that's what Nebraska, I think, can have this year, especially up front.
Absolutely. I mean, all those names you mentioned, that's just a ton of depth. And now we're getting to the point where we can utilize the depth to, keep the starters fresh on the field. And that's a luxury that we haven't had at some positions in quite some time.
And Mitch, it's hard to figure out anything because of the style of defense. Anyone can be anywhere. Popple dropped back into coverage in a scrimmage and picked off Kalen. So yeah, I mean, guys are definitely moving around, especially in the secondary. I mean, yeah, this because they got, you could have 3 linebackers out there and 2 of them could be Jacks. So I mean, I think maybe that's why they kind of got rid of that, designate. It seems like they don't really want to talk about what positions people really play. Because if you look at, I mean, in the secondary guys are just all defensive backs, and the linebackers are all linebackers. They're your defensive linemen. They're not even breaking it up like, oh, defensive end or edge or DT. It's just, and the same with the offense too. It's offensive line. So that they're just trying to make it, I think, as generic as possible. And I mean, I have no problem with that. It makes it a little harder trying to like put together a depth chart in your mind of where everybody stacks up. But I think we have a pretty good idea of, I could tell you who the top, 15 or 20 guys are. I mean, I might not be able to say exactly what their position is, but I mean, Matt Rule literally said last year when he's watching, he said he sometimes didn't know what position guys were playing during the game in the secondary. So don't feel bad if you don't necessarily know what position everybody's playing. Neither does
Well, they
Matt Rule.
pride themselves on being a positionless defense, and they are quite literally a positionless defense. So, I mean, and I think that's a good thing. Just put your athletes on the field, and let them go to work.
Yeah, just let them let them make plays. Rick Armstrong. Why do they do that?
In
In terms
terms
of
of,
do you mean in terms of the roster, Rick, or you'll have
in
to give
terms
us
of
a little
the,
more clarity on that? I'm guessing that's what you're saying is why do they do that? I I have no idea. I think that's just teams don't, for whatever reason, don't want to give out information. I'm not really sure why, to be honest with you. I mean, it would be nice if they told us who actually plays cornerback and
yeah.
edge.
Which
I don't
honestly,
know.
anybody kind of who knows football can kind of figure out who plays where. So I don't even know why they're so secretive about it. But
Yeah, I'm not I don't know. I think it's just convenience for them probably too, and it's just it probably makes it easier just, on a bunch of different, they don't have to try and explain to, positions as much to different guys, why we have you listed here or there. And, I think that's part of it, but yeah, I
but I
do think
also
it's
think it
kind of
keeps
silly.
kids from not like resting on their laurels too. Like, oh, I'm the starting jack linebacker. I don't need to do anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And yeah, Mitch
Complacency.
is right. A lot of a lot of young guys, that's what I want to see today. And yeah, let's not overreact to it. Let's not be like, oh, we're going to win the Big Ten based on what we saw in the spring game
I mean, we
today.
do that all the time, though.
I know, but I'm trying to tell us not to do that this
Like, I don't know. I feel kind of bad telling people not to do that when I'm going to be like, oh my god, Dayton or Dylan Rayola is going to be the next, coming of Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. I'm probably going to fire off some tweets today that you guys will save for later. Happy
Happy
spring
spring
game,
game day,
so
Co.
appreciate it. It seems weird that we're here talking about the spring game. It feels like we just ended Iowa, but time flies.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because we got the spring game and then the transfer portal window closes in 3 days, so it'll be nice to have that closed up. We'll see if any Huskers jump in there. I almost think that is why Matt Rule had the spring game so late, is to try to bump up as close as possible to that window. I'm not sure if that was planned or not, but
Well, it's annoying because it's the same weekend as the NFL draft, and I have a ton of work to do. But anyway, I mean, hopefully there's no surprises today. I mean, A.J. Allen was a surprise last year, a little less than a surprise, but I don't think there's going to be too many surprises, if any at all.
yeah, I don't think so because the other part is, with Dylan Edwards out there, is even if that happens, it's not going to happen. Well, excuse me.
Bless you.
Lord. Anyway, as I was saying, the Dylan Edwards commitment's not going to come down before before April 30th. So even if he is added to the roster, I don't think there's going to be much that can be done, by those guys. So unfortunately,
Good.
well, I was just gonna say, unfortunately, if he is added to the team, like it's not those guys aren't going to have the chance to transfer out or do anything unless they just decide to not play for the 2024 season. So
Give Dylan Edwards a blank check, have him write his specified number, sign it, and cash it. Let's get it done.
So the only issue I have with that is, like with the NIL cap, because then if it gets out with, I mean, you're paying Dylan Raiola 1.5 million. So if you pay Dylan Edwards 2 million, then what's stopping Dylan Raiola from coming back and being like, hey, I'm the biggest star in this program? I don't think he would. I'm just throwing that out as a hypothetical. Like I do think, like for instance, Michigan had a recent player that entered the transfer portal. This guy is getting 6 figures. They just got an NIL deal with him, and they're going to pay him 6 figures. Didn't even start a game last year, actually. And but he's had a 6-figure NIL deal with Michigan, but jumped in the portal and is going to go to Kentucky. Now, Michigan could sit there and be like, okay, we can try to match your offer, but they literally just agreed to a deal with him. So then it's like, okay, if you do that, then what stops the other players from your roster from being like, hey, when do I get my, can I redo my NIL deal too? So I just think you have to be very careful with this because you get to that point where, guys are going to start coming in Rule's office being like, hey, so-and-so just got a new deal. Where's my money? And that's what you want keep away from. And that's why the situation is so, screwed up, and why I feel so bad for coaches in football and basketball that they're having to deal with this stuff, because they're having to do more roster management than NFL teams, and without any type of parameter. Like, imagine in the NFL if Patrick Mahomes, or literally was a free agent anytime, and you were literally, if you were the Chiefs, you would have to like redo his deal every single year, because he'd be like, well, Jerry Jones is offering me $80 million to come play for the Cowboys next season. So, there's no rules. Nobody would like that. That would suck. So, it does. And what's happening in college football right now sucks.
I don't know. I'm eating cold soup and working three writing jobs. If you want to pay me $10 million and I have to deal with all this transfer stuff, I'd be more than happy to do that. I
get what you're saying, but
I don't know. I get what you're saying too, because it is a whole different brand of college football. But that's why these coaches are being paid like pretty well.
I get that, but I just think in terms of, just from a fan's perspective, I think it's ruining the sport. Yeah. It just, like not that I like I like to see the Iowa people, get hurt, but, the Caden Proctor thing, that's not good for college football. No. And, this, like this kid who hasn't even started, this kid, DJ Waller from Michigan, I'm talking about, hasn't even started a game, didn't even play in every game last year, had a decent spring game, and now is turning that around to saying he deserves, more money, and is going to, that's just like, to me, that's a slap in the face. Like, this kid was barely ranked. He was a low 3-star. Michigan takes a chance on him. They're going to pay him a 6-figure NIL deal, and he's still going to lead. Like, I don't know. That just rubs me the wrong way. I think Nebraska's done a great job with it, but, I do think that is going to be, I'm glad that their NIL is in a better place, but there's a reason that recently Matt Rule was talking about how they need to have, an NIL bankroll like Ohio State. It's, as long as you're in this situation where there's no rules and it's the wild west, it's, no amount of money is ever going to be enough.
Mitch's point is interesting because he says maybe Harburg doesn't work so hard this summer and fall if Name Raiola started tomorrow. Adrian Martinez fell into that trap in 2020, I believe it was, and he knew he was a starter, and he kind of I don't know, slacked off a little bit. So I think that's a good point too, because if you're the starter, then you want to work hard in practice, but you don't really have any incentive to do so if you're going to be the starting guy. I mean you do, but at the same time, if you have your spot, then it's human nature to kind of ease up a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think Rule's going to name a starter till like a week before. That's my guess. Is he's going to make him go through camp, but we'll see. Dylan Edwards is an interesting fellow. Would be used more as a situational piece, like a Ramir Stewart type, or maybe Ramir Johnson. Maybe that's what you meant. Yep. He isn't a 15-20 rush a game guy. The dude's, I don't know. I don't necessarily. I disagree a little bit on that. I do think that. I agree with what you're saying, but I think with the 10 to 20 times, he touches the ball in a game, I think he would be. I don't think there's a player on this roster that's like him in any way. I think Ramir Johnson's the closest comparison, but he can't stay on the field. And, this, like, I just remember watching Dylan Edwards, in the TCU game last year. And I think
exactly the game I was thinking of. Yep.
Yeah. His pass
catching.
His pass catching ability. I don't worry that much about, how big or small a guy is. It does. I'm not saying I think he would be a full-time player, but I think he would be, in his 15 touches a game. Like, I think he would be amazing for Nebraska. I think he would completely change this offense, to be honest with you. So that's I'm not saying he would be like the full-time guy, but with Dylan Raiola back there throwing the ball, I think he would be a game changer.
And on the subject of recruiting and recruits, we have some interesting ones coming today. We have the offensive lineman trio from Bishop Gorman, and TJ Lateef is a guy that I'm hoping that they can really kind of make some inroads with. He said earlier this week that Nebraska is making him feel like a priority, so that's interesting. I love Lateef's game. He's a pocket passer, really good thrower. Goes through his reads really well. So TJ Lateef is a guy that I'm watching. I don't think he's going to commit today or anything like that, but hopefully Nebraska can kind of continue to be, up in his recruitment and still make him feel like a priority.
So yeah, no, I definitely think that'll be interesting. I did want to say, because here about Dylan Edwards. So I looked up his stats, and I mean, the biggest thing, I think he just didn't get very many attempts. He only had over 10
Yeah.
attempts twice. He ran actually for against Nebraska. He ripped off a 34-yard run, had 9 carries for 55 yards. And then like USC had 12 for 44, 730 against Stanford. Some of the games later in the season, he only had, like 5 or 6 carries and didn't get a ton of yards, but 7 for 42 against Washington State. He also played behind one of the worst offensive lines, I think, in college
Yep.
football. I mean, they were not good.
And not
So,
to
I mean,
mention the fact that they had really good receivers too. So it wasn't really a running back friendly offense, in my opinion.
yeah. So, I mean, you still had quite a few games where he was ripping off, explosive runs and having explosive plays in the passing game. And, actually putting him on an offense where, they talk about and want to run the football, because Deion Sanders didn't want to run the football. He wanted his kid to throw the ball as
No.
much as possible.
Yep.
So, and
Yep.
I think that's part of the reason why Dylan Edwards left, and I don't blame him. I think he's going to go to Kansas State, but he'll go to Kansas State and start. I mean, that last guy that they had, what was his name? That was really good. Not Darren Sproles. I know they had him, but at any rate,
Kansas
he was
State,
pretty.
Deuce Vaughn.
Yeah, Deuce Vaughn. He's pretty small. I mean, Deuce Vaughn's not a big dude, and he was amazing. So, like, I mean, most of the time, you're right. Like 170 or 180-pound backs don't make it, but some of them do, sometimes they do, and those tend to be the ones that are a little bit different. So, and I think that Dylan Edwards is maybe in that category. And again, I don't think he's going to be a guy that you're going to say, hey, go run between the tackles 15 times in the Big Ten. But if you can throw him some swing routes, get him on the edge, do the pin and pull, like there's some exciting things he could bring to the offense.
Like a Wan'Dale Robinson type almost. That's how I would kind of. I don't know. I mean,
yeah, like a one, but I mean, no, because he's a true running back. But yeah, like a Wan'Dale Robinson.
he's a running back, but at the same time, like you're not going to put him necessarily between the tackles. In theory, every single play we did that with Wan'Dale, and that's why he left. But I mean, you wouldn't necessarily put a Wan'Dale in between the tackles, and you wouldn't necessarily put an Edwards always in between the tackles. Was my comparison there.
And do you see a balance offense pass to run? I mean, yeah, I do think Nebraska's going to pass the ball more. Mitch is saying 60-40. I don't know if they're going to pass it 60% of the time. That seems a lot
Honestly,
to me.
that's where I would go 60-40.
I have a hard time seeing it being, but maybe I'm wrong, but I think ideally they'd like to be more like 55-45, because when you've got the lead as well, you're talking about trying to ground the clock out in the fourth quarter. I mentioned that the other day. Like I don't think Matt Rule wants to be throwing 10 12 passes in the fourth. I think he wants to be throwing like 2 to 3 passes in the fourth quarter because they've got the lead. So like in an ideal world, a truly ideal world, I think it would be closer to 50-50 because they'd be grinding out a bunch of wins. But yeah, if you're just talking about like preferred play calls, then I can see 60-40 what you're talking about. Like in the first half, probably 60-40.
Because Marcus Satterfield wanted to pass the ball this year, and I think it took everything in Matt Rule's power to make Satterfield run the football when they finally got into that system, because he still wants that 75. Yeah, I agree, and I think it'll be a nice mix of both, and now we have the depth and the options to effectively execute both, running and passing plays, so that helps too.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun to actually see, have some quarterbacks, and yeah, it'll be fun to see, Dylan Rail. I know that's what everybody's been waiting for, and Daniel Kalen and all these other guys too. But yeah, Jacob Barney, I'm really excited to see him today. So anyway, Cornhusker Corner. I drove 15 hours from Houston to visit both my grandpa in Omaha and watch our new QB drop some bombs. This feels very much like a religious pilgrimage. Well, that sounds freaking awesome, Cornhusker Corner. I'm glad that you made the trip.
15,
Hopefully you didn't. Hopefully
this
you
right
didn't
here
get,
is why I cover the team, because there's fans that'll drive 15 hours to watch the game and read our stuff and follow the team, and this is why I like covering Nebraska, because you guys are dedicated. I mean, look at all the comments on our stream here right now. I mean, who else would want to talk football at 9 in the morning my time, 7 in the morning your time? I mean, I love it.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Hopefully, you didn't run into any tornadoes in your trip or
I
anything, and
know.
hopefully there wasn't, any negative ramifications from that. But that's freaking awesome. Yeah, that's why Nebraska does have the best fan base in the world. So
Hopefully the
it's
gas wasn't too much for you. Prices
yeah,
at the pump are
that's true.
ridiculous.
Yeah,
Prices at the pump
yeah,
are ridiculous now. So anyway,
yeah. They seem to be ridiculous since I was like in high school when it was like $1
I
to
know.
fill up the old like a
A
dollar for a
dollar. How old
gallon.
are you?
I mean, like $1 a gallon is what I
Oh, a
meant to
dollar.
say.
Yeah, like
You could get like a quarter tank for like $5 back when I was like, in high school. Curious to see how weather will affect attendance. Yeah, well, that might be
Mitch
interesting.
brought that up earlier
I don't
today.
really know. I haven't checked what the weather, is today in Lincoln, so that'll be interesting. But I know there's a baseball game too, right? So
Yeah.
potentially softball. Isn't there
Honestly,
something else this
yeah,
weekend
there's
too?
softball too. Yeah.
But yeah, and the baseball team got a nice win last night over Iowa, so that was pretty sweet.
Yeah, baseball needed that win,
Got to win some
and
non-conference games though, but
yeah, I mean, a win's a win. I mean, but speaking on the attendance, it was so cold and pouring rain last year, and there were still 90,000 people there. So short of like end of the world type of event, I'm sure the attendance will be. I'm sure there'll be a good attendance today because everybody wants to see this new team.
yeah. So it says 68 degrees, 67% humidity. So no, not too terrible. 10 to 15 mile an hour winds, according to the Weather Channel. So it doesn't sound,
It
terrible.
actually sounds like good football weather, minus
Did
the storm.
Mills reschedule?
Yeah.
I thought Mills canceled his USC trip, but I'm not sure. I think he's coming this
Oh,
weekend.
John Mills. I was thinking Cortez. You talking about John Mills, Mitch? Because
Oh,
John
Cortez
Mills,
Mills is coming this weekend. Yeah,
he
if
is, and
you're
John Mills is also coming this weekend, I believe. He canceled his
and
USC trip, and which honestly, Cortez.
well,
I think
Cortez.
Cortez is still on schedule.
So Cortez,
It
yeah.
w-
So in terms of the schedule change, he was scheduled to take his visit in June, like June 20th, I think, and he's taking is his official. This is an official visit this weekend. So I
which is
think
good
that's
news in
pretty.
my opinion.
I think it is good news, but I also think it's maybe like Nebraska trying to take a last ditch, swing to get in to stay in it because you look at some of the other teams and like he's a dude. Like Cortez Mills would be probably my favorite guy in this entire class. Like I think he would be absolutely incredible on this team with Dylan Raiola, and I think that that's why it's smart to have him come for this spring game because he's going to get to see Dylan Raiola, up close in a game situation and see like the Nebraska fan base and stuff. So a lot of things to sell, and hopefully you can generate some momentum and then get him back. For they had that. That's that thing in July. What I can't the cookout or whatever they called it, whatever it is. The cookout. Get him back for
Yeah,
the cookout. Get him back for a game in the fall. That's how you win his recruitment.
I have a better feeling on Christian Jones. I'm going to click the comment than I did a month ago. Getting Lofton would be nice. That would help Land Jones. They are friends. The thing about it is that Nebraska's recruiting the tight end position hard. They have obviously Bear Tenney, and they're also hosting another guy this weekend, which I'm going to look up right now because I posted it on the page. Who is also a tight end, and his name is, let's see, Camden Jensen. There we go. Camden Jensen, also a tight end, 3-star tight end, rated 90. Actually, yeah, sorry, 4-star tight end, rated 90 overall numerically. Nebraska and Washington are kind of the two teams that are kind of the most pressing in his recruitment, but Camden Jensen will also be in town today, so they're really going after the tight ends.
Yeah, I mean Chase Lofton, should be number one, the top of that list. But yeah,
Well,
Roman
I'm wondering if
Nyberg.
he's not coming based off the fact that we're getting so many tight ends to come to campus.
No, I
So,
don't. I wouldn't be worried about that. I mean, because I think that they're going to take like 3 tight ends anyway. They really like the tight ends. I mean, it's probably good to
why?
always have other. Well, they're versatile for one thing. I mean, if you want to run the football, you need tight ends. I mean, that's like, and then that tends to be with the NFL style coaches too, because Michigan used tight ends a
Yeah.
lot. So yeah, Yeah, it's really a critical position. I mean, I think this team is going to use a lot of two tight end sets, so you need those. And then the other point is
I
that
mean, they have,
you're on
let's see,
special teams.
they have Keelan Smith, Carter Nelson, Eric Ingerson,
Well,
Thomas
Keelan Smith, I
Sidoni
think, is going to
right
be a
now. Obviously,
receiver.
what's that?
I think Keelan Smith's going to be a receiver.
Okay, so uh, Ian Flint. I mean, there's a lot of bodies at tight end right now, but that could all change.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, I don't think that you ever, should recruit that much based on what your current roster is. Like, you just get the best players you can, and I think that they just value, So, like, to me, I don't like, regardless of how many running backs you have, I think you should always recruit 2 or 3 running backs. I don't think you should ever, look, because the
Right.
thing is with the transfer portal, you could lose them all in one day. I mean, literally. Not that Nebraska hasn't done a great job at that, but so
No,
that's
that's true.
and but yeah, Chase Lofton is, like Bear Tenney. And like, if you want to even look at this, like Bear Tenney and Chase Lofton are 2 completely different players. So like Bear Tenney's a guy who's going to be more your inline tight end, a guy that blocks, and he's probably not going to be somebody you're going to move around as much as like a Carter Nelson. Not that he can't, but so that's why I think there might be a little bit of difference. But yeah, I do feel a lot better about Christian Jones and Chase Lofton, that they're both, getting back on campus and, doing that type of stuff. Yeah, I mean, and then like fullback, like I said, people talking about the fullback's not really actually coming back that much. They're just going to use tight ends because that's what everybody does, So, and you look at like some of the best, like one of the best fullbacks, I think, from Kansas State got drafted as a tight end. So I mean, they pretty much are like an interchangeable position, like H back, fullback, which was interesting too. That Jeranian Bonner's now playing receiver again, or at least I've seen him taking routes as a receiver. So that's been interesting.
Our receiver room is loaded. I can't wait to see what they do today. Let's see.
Yeah, I think that will be pretty. It will be pretty fun. But yeah, Bear Tenney was a really nice commitment. They got another one from Tanner Turch. Was an really underrated guy out of the state of Colorado. Tom Lemming, talked him up a lot. Tom Lemming is the old school before they had the recruiting sites. He was like the first who ever came out with the ranking system. And so, he's kind of a good guy to follow too. And it's, you want to see what he says about Bear Tenney. And he rates him as a 4-star, I believe. But at any rate, Tanner Turch is
What do
another
you
guy.
think about Turch and where he'll play? Wide receiver?
Yeah, I think he'll be wide receiver. I think Nebraska's basically at this point set at receiver, except, if you get Cortez Mills, they've got themselves basically set there. And, I think it's.
Or Corey Sims, too, I'm thinking maybe. Like Mills or Sims.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Bear definitely is. He is a strong receiving tight end, but I do think that he's a willing blocker too. So, that's. And if you want to play, I tight ends always view themselves as receivers, but there's
Yeah.
a reason that they play tight end. So I mean, he's just like he's 433 according to the composite rankings. So
He played with Raiola at Chandler, right? If I'm not mistaken, or
I'm not
no?
sure about. No, he's from Utah, so
I thought Teddy played.
Raiola
I think
recruited
Troy
it.
Brian will
But yeah,
be
Raiola's
aware of.
was a big part of recruiting him. But
Yeah,
yeah, I think
Barney
so
is
too.
one of the guys that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I do think that Ja'Cory Barney is going to make a name for himself. So
No, I definitely agree. Maybe that slot guy.
but
I
yeah,
could definitely see him in the slot.
but yeah, Bear did have a bunch of offers like Michigan, Utah, but that's the thing is like, Georgia, but that, those teams aren't recruiting you if you're not going to be a blocker. So, that's another thing that I took away from his ability. And that's the other thing is just because, I still don't see him being moved around quite as much as like a Carter Nelson or, Chase Lofton either. I think Chase Lofton's kind of more of a traditional, tight end, and Carter Nelson's different than, I would put him in that with like Rob Gronkowski, that type of tight end who you can split out
Ooh, okay.
wide, on your, how like the Patriots used to do that where they would, basically split Gronk out wide, and that would essentially force teams to either cover Gronk one-on-one or put a safety over the top. And then if Tom saw it was one-on-one, like in the Super Bowl against the Seahawks, just launch it right to Gronk, man, because that's not a very good matchup for whoever that is.
So much talent in the wide receiver room. They almost need someone to leave in order to get more reps. I am interested if we'll see an exit or two from the wide receiver room because there are just so many bodies there.
Yeah, it is going to be really interesting to see how it works out. Let's see. I don't think. I guess so. He's talking about Bear playing some a few different schools. So I guess his dad moves around or whatever. But at any rate, yeah, I mean, this is a huge weekend for recruiting. David Merritt's another guy, taking his visit's going to be making a decision soon. I know Alabama just recently got some, expert projections from the On3 guys, like Steve Wiltfong and stuff. But maybe they can, change his mind. Alabama's been recruiting really well since,
You're good.
Kalen DeBoer went
Yeah.
over there. He's not. They have not skipped a beat at all with their recruiting since Saban left.
Dawson Merritt's a stud. He is a stud. He is a very good defender, very good pursuit, very good speed. So I'm not saying we're leading or anything for our recruitment, but we're very much in the mix. And I feel good about where we stand.
I don't feel good about where we stand. I think Alabama should feel good, but hopefully they can change things today. We'll see. Yeah,
That's the thing. I think a lot of it hinges on today, but we're still very much in the mix, is my opinion. In my opinion, and you can never say never with this coaching staff. So hopefully, a strong impression will be made today.
Yeah, I hope so. I still wouldn't. I would still, see Alabama as the favorite, but you never know. We'll see. And yeah, I do agree with you, Cornhusker Corner, that Carter Nelson can be, Brock Bowers type. I think he can be a first round pick type. It's good to see that he's fulfilling, like you said, his commitments, having a great track season. It would be nice to see him in the spring though, but I still think he'll find his way onto the field next fall, so I'm not worried about that.
I'm not worried about that either. I mean, you don't keep a player like that on the bench. He's very versatile, good overall athlete, and I think that athleticism will go a long way towards him seeing playing time in the fall.
Yep. So does anybody got any final predictions here for
no.
the let's see, for the spring game? Co-subs. Okay. How nervous are you for a good performance today by Dylan?
I'm not nervous. It's a spring game. I'm more looking at like mechanics, and not that we really need to worry about that with Dylan, but just that he continues to progress. I mean, I'm hoping we see some deep throws to Jalen Lloyd and the wide receivers, and I'm curious to see how he handles his composure in the pocket, and how mature he is in terms of his game, because we've seen it. In the bowl games, he's carried himself extremely well, but playing in front of the Husker faithful, I mean, he would be lying if he said he wasn't even a little nervous. So I think there's the pressure element to it, but I also think he's ready.
Yeah, let's see. And then over under 2 touchdown passes.
Over.
I mean, I would say under, I don't think he's going to play that much. I mean, the game's not going to be that long really. So I don't know, maybe, but I would say I don't see him going over 2, but I could be wrong.
Not sure about 3. I mean, that is true, but at the same time, and just in terms of numbers, we have depth, and like you said, we don't have a lot of returning production, but numbers wise, it's a numbers game when you're talking about the roster, obviously, and so in that way, we have a lot of depth.
Yeah, I'm not worried about. If Matt Rules says he's worried about receiver depth, I think he's full of it, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't think everything he says can be truly taken without a grain of salt. I mean, Isaiah Nayor, Jamal Banks, Malachi Coleman, Jalen Lloyd, Jaden Doss. I mean, Jaden Doss has barely even gotten into the mix. Isaiah McMorris hasn't even got here yet. So yeah, I don't. Like if there was a need that they were going to seek in the portal, I don't think the receiver is anywhere near the top of the list. So that's one of those where I'm not buying what Rule's saying.
And they addressed it in January, if anything. So
Yeah, like I wasn't that worried about wide receiver even before they got Banks and Nair, to be honest with you. I think they would
But
have
I'm
been
happy they
fine.
got him for sure.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and I guess like Kosebs, I don't think it'll be a normal game. So I don't know, maybe. I guess if you're gonna give Rayola the ball at the 20, but I don't know. I think that, would cheapen it a little bit. But I mean, I guess.
I don't know. That's a good opportunity for red zone work. So maybe.
Yeah, I don't. So I'm not sure if they're gonna do that type of stuff. So we'll see. I would rather them just play a full actual game. I don't like that situational stuff. Just play the game, and if the chance, you've had all spring to practice red zone opportunities. Just go through an actual game, call the plays. That's why I kind of like splitting up the teams. But whatever. It's better than, at least they're not doing the stupid crap that Ole Miss did.
Nervous about our fan. I mean, yeah. I mean, this comes with the territory. We all overreact. I mean, I will be interested to read X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it today, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of highs and lows like there is on any normal game day. But I think Rail is ready for it. I think he knows what he's getting himself into. That being said, our fans are going to be obnoxious, us included.
Yep, I mean, yeah, that's fans are stupid. So I mean, that's just how it is. Fans aren't smart. Fans aren't smart on game day. So
Rule seems pretty confident though. Yeah, I mean, I would be too. Um, I would be too, just because of, like we said, the incoming depth and the athletic potential that we have on the roster. Twitter
yeah,
will be popping for sure during the game. Oop, I agree.
I was just gonna say, if he throws 2 or more
Yeah.
touchdowns, I think he's gonna have some throws. I think he's probably gonna have some where like they get close to the end zone, but we'll see. I mean,
If he
I don't
throws
I
two or
don't
more
think
touchdown
that
passes,
they're gonna be like, I don't know, maybe they'll do like the what the Packers always did with Aaron Rodgers, and they got close to the end zone and they try to throw like hell to get him an extra touchdown pass. So maybe they'll try to do those stuff like that, but I don't think so. We'll see though.
if he throws 2 or more touchdown passes, be prepared for like 5 articles from me about each touchdown pass. But no, I'm excited. I mean, this is going to be a fun day. A lot of optimism. I haven't been this optimistic about a team since 2021. Let's hope it doesn't end like 2021. But if you throw,
Mitch also says if he throws an 80-yarder, the Big Ten Network will crash. Maybe, which that probably wouldn't shock me. So Co, what's going on with the Iowa QB situation? I believe it's their Cade McNamara is going to be the starter. So Deacon Hill just transferred or entered the portal. Not that I don't know why, because he's the worst quarterback I've ever seen, even though he did beat us. So I shouldn't say that. But yeah,
their defense
anyway.
beat us. But yeah,
Well, and Chuba Purdy throwing a really stupid interception beat us. But
we beat
at any
ourselves.
rate,
We do an awesome job of beating ourselves. We're our own worst opponent.
yeah, and that's why you have to go get it. That's why the quarterback matters. Not turning the football over. I mean, if you have a quarterback, like my guy JJ McCarthy, who can take care of the ball, like that's worth its weight in gold. And Nebraska was the worst team in football at doing that last year, and that's why we were 5-6 or 5-7 instead of playing in the Big Ten championship game.
I agree, and so yeah, so we went out, got Raiola, got Kalen in May, but we knew that we needed a quarterback, and we adjusted quickly, and that's a credit to the coaching staff.
I do think if it would have worked out with Kyle McCord, though, he would have been a pretty good quarterback. He should still be at Ohio State right now, but
yeah, I agree.
I think there's gonna be times where this year where they miss Kyle McCord, because I just don't think Will Howard's that great. Yeah, ate himself out of a scholarship.
He did.
Yeah, well,
he did.
And
that'll happen.
He wasn't very good anyway, so.
No, I mean, I don't know if it's a huge loss for Iowa, but time will tell.
It's not like they can take your scholarship away, but whatever. It's so funny how it all works out. But yeah, I mean, Iowa's going to be Iowa. I mean, they're going to have a good defense, and Cade McNamara is all right. He's not a terrible quarterback, but he's not a game changer either. He probably is your classic game manager type, but he'll be better than Deacon Hill for sure. But I'm not sure
Not that
how
the
much
bar
other
is
talent
high
that
there,
they have.
but yeah.
So, all right, guys. Well, I think that's about time to call it.
Yeah.
Yeah, big loss for the local Chinese buffet economy. He says a Deacon Hill.
I just had Chinese last night. It was so good. I wish I had leftovers, but I don't, unfortunately.
Third day of the draft. You have to, get some more
Yeah,
takeout
power
in.
through. It's been a long weekend. I got to power through. Got to see who else the Patriots draft, and maybe be disappointed, maybe be excited. Who knows? Your Packers did okay, didn't they?
Yeah, they did pretty good. They got an offensive lineman in the first round, which I think is always a good decision, and Edrin Cooper in the second round. So yeah, it worked out pretty well. But none of us really know. So
will any scares get taken? That's a good question. I thought
I do think Omar
maybe Omar
Brown's going to
Brown
get
today.
taken.
Yeah.
I think he'll get taken in the 7th round. I'd be surprised if he didn't get taken. Nice, Mitch. I like that you're a Packers fan. Attaboy. Go Pack, go.
Well, now Chris is going to be a Vikings fan with McCarthy in under center.
No, I mean, I hope that he does well, and I think he will do well. I think he's got a great chance to win Rookie of the Year, to be honest with you.
All he has to do is hand the ball off, and it'll be just like a repeat of his Michigan days.
I hate that so much because that's not true at all. That's just not true. I mean, that tells me you didn't watch Michigan. I mean, remember, I want to go back to the chat we had of the Nebraska game, and after he tore up Nebraska, and you were like, man, he's really good.
He is really good, but Blake Corum also did a number on us.
Yeah, but Blake Corum wasn't Blake Corum till like the Penn State game. Like, go look at his numbers.
Michigan. I'm surprised Blake Corum got drafted as late as he did.
Yeah, that was a mistake by the NFL to let Sean McVay get Blake Corum. But yeah,
there'll be plenty of this, Mitch, moving forward. So get ready.
I mean, I'm just telling you guys right now, JJ McCarthy. Like, you put him with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, Aaron Jones. I mean, like, that was the Vikings won the draft. I hate to say it, but the Vikings won the draft. And for the first time in my entire life, like, I truly believe that they are a threat. They're probably going to win the North next year. I mean, because the one thing they needed was a quarterback, and they got the best one in the draft. And they got him at the 12th pick, or the 10th pick. So at any rate, that's the way I feel about it. But
are you going to get a JJ McCarthy Vikings jersey?
No, I won't. No. I mean, yeah, it wouldn't. I won't terribly hurt my feelings if he doesn't work out, but I just have zero doubt that he will. Just
he's
like
better
Jordan
than Sam
Love.
Darnold, who I believe the Vikings have as the backup or the number 2. So,
well, that's who they signed, but yeah, I mean, but see, that's I don't know. I don't buy the idea that I don't think he needs that much development. He played in a pro style system, so I mean, out of all the quarterbacks, like, he's the only one that's not racking up yards on screen passes that don't work in the NFL. Like, that's Caleb Williams and Bo Nix and Drake May. Like, those guys threw way more behind the line passes than JJ McCarthy did.
Jaden Daniels, I'd say probably maybe a little more than McCarthy, but
I guess my thing is, like, I don't know. Like with Caleb Williams, Drake May, and one of those guys is going to bust. And I'm very fearful for the Patriots that it's Drake May. So we'll see.
We'll see what they do today, because they could have the opportunity to add more receiving talent. I like Seed and Wallace that they got last night for the tackle position. He's actually pretty solid. So as long as they surround him with playmakers, unlike they did with Mac Jones, I think he'll be fine.
Hopefully, Gerard Mayo better hope so, because otherwise he's going to be going the same way as Bill
I wouldn't want to
Belichick
be
in
Gerard
3
Mayo
years.
right now.
Yeah, because your entire job is dependent on whether Drake May is. Because if Drake May is not a franchise quarterback, then you're going to be looking for a new job in 3 years. And
then the cycle will start all over again.
Yep. But yeah, it'll be interesting. All right, guys. Well, let's end it there. But enjoy the spring game, and if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Hit the comment section as well. And as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.